Jeff was saying that your knee is bothering you and need to know your status this week. Can you give us any update?
Yeah, I'm going to play, and it feels pretty good.
What are you dealing with exactly there?
A little MCL, but I've had a lot worse. Got lucked out, avoided major stretchage of the MCL.
Did you have to take an MRI?
No, I did not. Good question, though.
Did you refuse to take an MRI?
No, we actually never talked about one. Didn't talk about it.
Jeff said, like, if he were a betting man, he would bet that you would play. So there's no way you're not playing, basically.
There is no way I'm not playing. Correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
How important is it to you? I think you've mentioned this on a couple of occasions, just to go the distance and start every game.
Yeah, it's important, especially, we've been out of the playoffs for a few weeks now, so that's one of the final goals is to play all 17.
Aaron, before the season started, if you, and I don't want to jinx you because there's still 2 to go, but I mean, if you were to go all 17, would you have imagined being able to do that? I know you did a lot of work. You've spoken about all the work you did in the offseason to prepare for this. Did you think about getting all 17 in before this started?
Yeah, that was one of the goals for sure. Definitely felt like mid-season that was going to be difficult, but right now looks like for sure 16. And hopefully get through this one and get to 17.
If you get through all the 17, does that, and obviously you've been feeling a lot better. We've all seen how much mobile you've been in the last few weeks. Does it, what if any impact does that have on when you do take some time and think about next season?
Yeah, I mean, having surgery in the off season is always difficult on the body and mind. So to get through the season and not have to have off-season surgery would be really nice, and would definitely make me feel better about where my body was at moving forward.
You said yesterday on the show for the second time in a week that there's a possibility where you could be released the day after the season ends. From the outside looking in, something would have to be amiss for something like that to happen. Why do you think that's a possibility? And is something amiss?
Can you define amiss in this case?
Well, normally teams don't release future Hall of Famers the day after the season ends. So like you've mentioned it twice, and I'm just curious. Why would you say that?
Well, because I think anything's possible, Rich. I think anything is truly possible, whether it happens or not. I'm sure that there'll be decisions that, I don't think there's going to be surprises where there's like, oh, I don't know what we want to do with certain, I think there's going to be some decisions that want to be made the day after the season or a couple of days after the season. So, I don't know. I'm just not naive to the. It's not 0% in my mind. I don't think it's a high percentage. I think there's probably a conversation to be had. But I'm just not naive to that being a 0% chance. I think it's more than a 0% and less than a certainty. So somewhere in the middle.
Have you been given any indications though that something like that might happen, or it's just?
I haven't given zero. I'm just kind of open to everything at this point, and understanding that there's a lot of things that could happen. They could want to January 6th or 7th. They could say we want you to come back next year, but they could just easily say, hey, we're going to go in a different direction, whatever that looks like. So again, open to all of it, understanding all of it's possible. And I look forward to those conversations.
What do you want, Aaron? What's best case scenario for you? What do you hope unfolds?
I just want to take some time personally, and so and then whatever happens, whatever the team wants to do. I mean, I have nothing but gratitude for the Johnsons and everybody I've met here and everybody who brought me in. It's been obviously not as successful as we thought it was going to be, but I've made a lot of good friends here. Had a lot of really special moments. Had some really difficult ones too. But no animosity. Whatever happens, whatever they decide. And again, I still need. If they said we'd love for you to come back and play, I'm still gonna need some time mentally to get away from it and to see how I feel if I want to come back for a 21st season.
If you do want to come back and they want you back, what would that mean to you? I mean, given all that's taken place.
It mean that they see me as an important part of helping the culture, the changeover, whatever they do at head coach, and helping the next wave of New York Jets. That'd be special to hear that. But if they don't, again, no offense at all will be taken.
Aaron, do you think that if they did want you back, that because there's so much speculation now, that they would indicate that to you at this point? Or do you think that's a product of there's a new regime coming in, so that's still a little bit up in the air?
Yeah, first of all, a great room you got right there. Secondly, to answer your question, I would be surprised if there was a conversation now, because there's so many uncertainties. There's a GM that has to get hired, I would assume, first, and then he's going to be part of hiring the head coach. And then, so I have to be in the plans of multiple people, starting with the ownership and then the GM and then the head coach. So that's why, to me, that would not be a conversation I'm expecting anytime soon until those things are in place.
Do you think Woody wants you back?
You should ask Woody.
Might not see him for a little bit.
Have you and Woody had conversations at all, Aaron, about the future?
No.
Can you speak to, on Garrett Wilson? He's obviously expressed some frustration publicly. I'm wondering if you've talked to him about that.
Yeah, I have. I've talked to him throughout the season about some of it. Yeah.
And how's, like, recently, within the last couple of days after the most recent?
No, not this week. No, not in the last couple of weeks. But it's not the first time. So there's been conversations about it.
You understand his frustration, Aaron? I mean, he has been. I think he's the fourth most targeted player in the NFL, so he has been getting targets. But he seems to be frustrated with his role or something. But do you understand where he's coming from?
Yeah, receivers want the ball. I understand that.
You feel like he's caught. He had 90 receptions though. He's gotten the ball pretty good amount, right?
Yeah, 6 a game on average. Yeah.
Yeah. What Brick was saying on Monday, we got to figure out ways to get him the ball. Coaches can say that, people can say that. But ultimately, kind of falls on you.
Yeah, it's on me.
The ball.
Yeah.
How hard is that, Aaron? To can you go into a game and say, I'm going to get this guy the ball, or you can't because you don't know what the defense is going to do, you don't know the situations, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving factors. I think in the end, you try and throw it to the open guys, and you got to go through your progressions. He could be number one in the progression and not get the ball. He could be on the backside of progression and get the ball. Just depends on how defenses play. So, there's a ton of plays in the plan for both him and Devontae. That's how you usually scheme. You're scheming out plays for your top players. So there's a ton of plays for Garrett, a ton of plays for Devontae. They most of the time get called, and it's just a matter of me, reading the defense out and getting the ball to the right spot. But he could be number one in the progression and get doubled, like we've seen a lot with, the 44-man and 55-22 man that we've seen, or just 22 Tampa, which the Jags gave us a bunch of as well. If you're the backside single receiver, it's you're in those coverages. You actually have a legitimate double a lot. Now it changes in the slot, but. We've moved him around a bunch. We've given him, a lot of plays where he's number one or two in the progression. It just depends on the defense dictating where the football goes.
Aaron, you had said on Pat's show yesterday.
Last one here.
You had said on Pat's show yesterday. You made a reference about keeping an eye on and understanding who was in and who was out. In your locker room. have you seen guys that are not in, all in? And if so, do you take as a leader, a role in confronting that?
You want some names?
Yeah, why not? For Christmas.
I'm not even going to touch this question. I think sometimes you need to say things like that to remind guys how important it is to be a professional. And this is a 365-day-a-year job. That's how you got to approach it to stick around the league for a long time. I may be old and been in 20 years and sound like a coach sometimes, but I just believe that the players that are the most motivated stick around the longest, and those players can inspire other players. So if I say something like that, it's because I want guys to finish this thing out the right way. If I see somebody who's not doing it the right way, then I say something. But the beauty is that everybody's watching. This is an audition for all of us. There's a new regime coming in, at least in the GM spot, and we got to figure out who's going to be on the squad moving forward. And these are important times for all the guys. And I want to finish with a specific shout out for a guy who does it right all the time, not just some of the time, all the time. And that's Jarius Monroe, who just got elevated to the active roster. So shout out to Jarius. He's a phenomenal young player. Reminds me a lot of Anthony Levine, who I played with for a long time, who ended up being a team captain in Baltimore and played double-digit years in the league. So shout out to Jarius. He does it right all the time. I wish this would have happened a long time ago, but he gets his credited season. He's a great player and really happy for him. Thanks. Merry Christmas.